Welcome back to the Table. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. Peter Martinez, who is the showrunner of this wonderful podcast. As always, we're here to talk about a movie that the other person hasn't seen, namely me, but obviously with our Ghostober theme, with this being October and Halloween and horror theme, Peter has curated a bunch of movies that are, ghostly and supernatural. Last week we were talking about Poltergeist, the 1982 film. And today we will be discussing. I'm sorry, I'm a little high right now. I got a little bit of that Regeneron that Trump has right now. So, yeah.
I hear it's nice.
It really is. We are talking about... You can hear it in my voice, can't you? I'm just this close from breaking down. We're talking about... the 1999 movie, I wanted to recall the correct year that this was out, The Sixth Sense. Now, seemingly, people scream in shock and horror when they inevitably are told of films that are so beloved and so classic and are so well known that I had not seen until now this moment. And so if anyone wants to ask, wait, he hasn't seen that? No shit. That's why we're doing a podcast about it. And now you're going to hear someone's brand new thoughts on a film that is over 20 years old. So congratulations. Yeah, people experience films at different points in their lives. Wow. What a novel concept. That's almost as if that's what the whole point of the show is, right? Damn, that Regeneron is strong. Peter, how are you doing?
Tad bit defensive there.
Peter and I got into a debate before the podcast, and it went on for 20 minutes, and he got me heated as usual. And
whenever I win the debate, he always gets like this.
He doesn't win. He just grandstands and screams, and until he gets his way. So that's how
getting your way is
go.
winning.
You did not get your way. You thought that you got your way.
We'll see. We'll see.
So today we're talking about The Sixth Sense by M. Night Shyamalan, which I'm trying to find the right adjective to describe what his name means today. A storied filmmaker. I certainly don't want to say troubled filmmaker because that adds in a very negative, I guess, assuasion. He is a very well-known filmmaker. As well known for his biggest hits as he is for his biggest misses. I think that's fair to say on all accounts. Peter himself is a much more, I would say, Shyamalan connoisseur. And we'll get into all that stuff. And when I mean connoisseur, I mean he knows his movies. I don't. I mean, you talking about my first Shyamalan movie was The Last Airbender. So, I mean...
That was your first introduction to The Last Airbender as well.
That's actually false. I had seen The Last Airbender series before the movie, and you would know that if you listen to our Airbender Avatar series on Red Spotlight. So, Peter loves to throw around false accusations to his panelists that make them look worse than he does. So, just in case, you ask yourself why Peter likes to do that, that's exactly why.
So you're saying fake news?
I'm saying stop talking so we can get on with the show. So you said that there was some, we would do a little bit of a backtrack in terms of if we could find any more information about Poltergeist because of your thoughts, and those were in particular too.
Just the more political aspects I found prevalent within the film. Before the recording last time, I had done a quick little Google search to see if anything came up. I really couldn't find anything, which is weird. I don't know why. I felt everything that I was saying was pretty obvious. And I don't mean that in like a condescending way. I'm saying like if I noticed it, then I know a film made back in the 80s, a popular one at that. Anything I have to say in it has probably been said 1.5 million times. And the fact that I couldn't find anything, I was like, oh, that's odd. But yeah, I still can't find anything.
I couldn't find anything as well. And to be clear, you are referring to the underlying perhaps messages that was included in Poltergeist in regards to...
I know other people have said something along similar lines that I have, but I haven't seen I don't know, maybe commentary from Spielberg himself. Or
that was, I think, the stuff that we were looking for is if anyone involved with the production itself could speak to a lot of this imagery, a lot of this perhaps symbolism that is there. That I agree with you. It does stick out and it does make you wonder. But that hasn't been addressed from what at least I could see or find. But there was also a long-standing dispute between who really was the director of Poltergeist, whether it be Tobe Hooper or Steven Spielberg. And boy, did we really undersell what a long-standing saga that has been. Because I found over the course of this last week a series of comments from various cast and crew over the decades, mind you, of very different accountings of what happened. Kind of awkward, honestly, to have so many people from the cast and crew disagree, I think, almost vehemently. I don't think anyone's comments, at least the ones that I shared with you, Peter, were I don't feel being negative in tone and nature or being, I think, belittling. I think they were all trying to be honest to what their recollection was. But it is very contradictory stuff, because I think literally half the stuff would suggest that, no, Hooper was there every day. As far as I was concerned as an actor, he was my director. And then there are cameramen and producers and what have you that would say, well, Hooper was there, but the creative force of this movie was Steven. And then there were other accounts where one actor would say, well, every day that I was there, Spielberg was directing. And then Spielberg himself would say, or maybe not Spielberg, but maybe someone else was saying that Hooper would never be the one to suggest creative ideas first, that he would basically follow Steven's lead on it. It's hard to say. I'm not sure this will ever be something that's ever known. There was even actually in when this movie came out, and forgive me, and I'm not even sure if you were aware of this as well, I had no idea that this movie came out the same month as E.T.
The same month? I didn't know that.
Well, it was June, right? If not the same month, it was the same summer, for sure. Mm-hmm. The same summer season. And that a lot of the publications, and this is the theme that'll carry over to today's episode with Shyamalan, but a lot of the Hollywood publications were making a story out of it about the summer of Spielberg. And at that point, there were some tensions that may have already been, flared up. There was even actually, I think, a DGA, PGA issue with the film that the people behind Poltergeist they had to pay a fine because they were, making Spielberg's importance more so than the actual credited director.
I mean,
what?
That you still have that to this day. Most people think Spielberg when they think Poltergeist, too.
Yeah.
More so than they think Tobe Hooper.
Spielberg actually released a comment, I think a statement the week that it was released, clarifying that Hooper directed this movie, not me. The week that it came out, what do you think about all of this? I'm not going to share a lot of the information. It's easily accessible for people. If you want to just look up literally Wikipedia and it's all there. It's just too much to filter through. But Peter has seen a lot of this. What do you make of all that information?
Honestly, it doesn't sound that contradictory. Especially when you pair it with what Tobe Hooper had said himself.
Right.
And what Spielberg had said himself, which is what seems to be clear is Spielberg was there a lot on set, and he had no problem just jumping in and making creative decisions. And Spielberg has said that as well. He said he was lucky that Tobe Hooper allowed, him as a producer to come in and make so many decisions. And Tobe Hooper said he was cool with Spielberg apparently just jumping on the gun whenever something comes to his head or something needs changing, and with his creative input. And Tobe Hooper was obviously very much on board with a lot, if not pretty much all his creative decisions. As a director, maybe the one person you're interacting with most is Tobe Hooper, because maybe he's the one that comes over and talks to you like, okay, yeah, that was great, let's do this, you do that. But maybe behind the camera, that's where Spielberg is, and he's the one lighting, oh yeah, like, hey, go do this, go do that. Maybe he's saying like, oh yeah, the actors they should be doing this, they should be doing that, in which case Hooper goes and he talks to the actors about that. So I could see where, depending on where you are working, the hierarchy within the film production, whether you interacted more with Hooper or interacted more with Spielberg. And then of course you have to add on to all of that, the summer of Spielberg, where his legacy was just cemented and his career skyrocketed, and as Spielberg this, Spielberg that, so not only that, in the what's it called, advertisement, of course his name is going to be overshadowed like crazy. I mean, that still happens today.
Well, Candyman, I think, is a recent example. People were all convinced that was Jordan Peele's movie. Yeah. Well, he produced it, but that's Nia DaCosta who directed that movie.
Well, look at the biggest one, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, that's right.
It's literally called Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's directed by Henry Selick. Yeah. I mean, so it's not new necessarily, that where other names overshadow which should be the main creative force of the project, but just everything surrounding the production, everything going into it, it's definitely entertaining. Just sort of pulling apart all the layers. So no, that's good info.
No, there's actually, and there's another question that you had asked, or not that you had the answer to, about what it was that Spielberg just didn't outright direct this movie himself. There actually is an answer that I found. And this is, from this long, detailed history. A clause in his contract with Universal Studios prevented Steven Spielberg from directing any other film while preparing E.T., the Extraterrestrial.
Okay. See, and then that can lead credence to the whole notion that he was maybe a little bit more, maybe he wanted to direct Poltergeist, maybe he wanted to really, really have a say. He really wanted to make the film, but he just couldn't. So,
which, I mean, that wouldn't have been the first time that Spielberg himself has been held back from directing movies that he wanted to do. Remember, he was scheduled to do Star Wars Return of the Jedi, but because George had basically declared war with the Directors Guild of America, that prevented Spielberg.
God damn it, George. You son of a bitch. We could have had a Star Wars Spielberg film at the height of his career. At Spielberg's height. At the height of Star Wars and the height of Spielberg.
Which, if you're keeping track, though, and I don't know, entirely where we are right now, but this is 82, with both Poltergeist and E.T. being released. 83, I believe, is when Jedi was released, right? So that would only mean the next year. Yeah. So I wonder if that would have affected E.T. or Poltergeist if he had tackled on the Star Wars.
Well, he probably wouldn't be on the set of Poltergeist much.
And then there's more here. According to Tobe Hooper, the very core concept of the film was Steven Spielberg.
Well, yeah, that's why the critic said story by Spielberg.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just the fact that it was that he has a screenwriting credit on the screenplay. The idea was from him. So it's, what do you do with the situation? It's one of those. But taking nothing away from Tobe Hooper, of course, he also has a wonderful filmography, especially with horror. And yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. But there is some carryover when you think about how the media pushed that whole narrative of the summer of Spielberg with the rise of Shamhammer.
Speaking of Spielberg, let's talk about the next Spielberg. The man himself, M. Night Shyamalan. I remember the height of M. Night. Okay,
How old
I
were
was
you?
there. I was young,
How old were
fairly
you?
young.
Were you even 5?
6,
Okay.
5, 6, 7. Because it came out in 99, right?
Mhm.
Same year as
Phantom Menace.
At that point, I was about 4, maybe even 3 or 4. But I would say his height, when everything was just like M. Night this, M. Night that, is when you start to get into like Signs and even, The Village. At that point, everyone was like, okay, he's hot shit. He's everything. Let's go. I am a huge M. Night Shyamalan fan since I was a youngin'. I've always loved his work. His early work, obviously. I don't know. I find him a fascinating director. I really, really like his work. I'm always gonna be on his side. As far as, well, not on his side. I'm always gonna be rooting for him. I'll put it that way. I want him to succeed. And boy, oh boy, I'm surprised. Well, obviously not yet, but one day there will be an M. Night Shyamalan movie on his career. Because holy shit, is it a roller coaster? To go from right out the gate, just praised and awarded, the next Spielberg, all this, have a steady trickle down until you just fucking plummet, and then the world turns on you, and then you have like a semi return. Like, I don't know. Well, the story ain't finished being finished. Story isn't finished being written yet. He's currently, I think, filming a movie, and it's luckily this. Oh God, this is the lucky part. I think it's based off like a graphic novel, so it's not an original idea. I get very worried. He needs a writing partner just to keep him in check. He's one of those people where it's like, I love where you're going, but we need the bumpers to make sure you don't go off the rails, basically.
Like George Lucas?
Yeah. I think to a lesser extent, because George Lucas, I think M. Night Shyamalan is talented. Not to say that George isn't talented, but George's talent has always been just being an idea guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
right.
For someone, it's so funny, because for someone that's so like, I'm about the art, I'm about the purity of it, fuck these corporations that, just hold you back and they don't let you just make what you want to make. He was always better at the business side of things, the idea business side, selling toys, merchandising, growing his own empire. And it's, God, you could make a movie on George Lucas as well, because he kind of became that in an effort to be able to be that, artist that didn't have to worry about anything. But in the pursuit of creating that financial stability, he kind of became too good at it. At which point his sole focus became the business instead of the art. I'm telling you, these scripts write themselves about Hollywood. But no, M. Night. I didn't see this film first. I didn't see it first. The Sixth Sense. I saw Signs first.
Oh.
Which is utterly horrifying. Yeah. As a horror film, it's probably the film that like fucked me up the most as a kid.
Really?
Signs, yes, very much so. Mm-mm. 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 And you know, like so many people shit on Signs. Signs is a great movie. Fuck them. I Signs is a fantastic movie. Oh, if the aliens die due to water, why would they go to try to take a planet that's 70% water? Because fuck you, that's why, okay?
Isn't that War of the Worlds?
No, War of the Worlds is if aliens fucking die to bacteria, why would they, go to a planet with bacteria or some shit like that? Because with War of the Worlds, they die due to disease. But in Signs, it's water.
That's a different podcast. I think, have we had a podcast yet where we've like, sometimes you do these themed podcasts where we like to take a common, I don't know if trope is the right way of saying this, but one of fandom or one collective food of thought, I feel, in terms of like criticism. And I think that this would fall perfectly into that this refusal to suspend belief in a movie. And so you're criticizing things like, oh, they died because of water. That's dumb. I'm not going to enjoy this thing.
Yeah. And again, a lot of these people who like hyper criticize the actions and the decisions of movie characters always baffle me, because then I look at the real world and it's just idiot on top of idiot doing the stupidest things imaginable than even a film. Like, I don't want to get into politics, but like satire is dead, basically.
Well, remember House of Cards? Before the whole Kevin Spacey thing happened, we both loved that series, and we both argue that it had a solid 5 seasons worth of television, and yet, as it like hit season 3, 4, and 5, it was criticized by people for saying that it was just too unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember being pissed. Like, really? Unbelievable? Like, from where? Where is it unbelievable? Oh my god. Oh, that still pisses me off to this day. Like, but that tells you how few people truly fucking understood this country to think that that shit was unbelievable.
And still don't recognize the
still
country, I feel.
Are dumb as fuck. But no, yeah, I didn't see.
I mean, look at Poltergeist. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not
you
gonna
don't
go
want to
there.
get into Poltergeist?
No.
Okay. I didn't see Sixth Sense until I was definitely older, because I also just didn't do scary movies like that when I was. I'm very scared of everything.
What? I thought you
especially when I was younger.
Well,
that's the thing.
That's
though,
interesting,
right?
though. I thought it was just me and Moreno that were like that.
No. Well, when I was younger, like, no, I couldn't even see rated R movies. So yeah, I wasn't gonna see that. But I didn't see horror films when I was younger. I loved Halloween and like the spooky aesthetic and all of that. Like, I've always loved it. Like, Halloween, I've never really cared that much about candy, but Halloween's always been my favorite holiday. So put 2 and 2 together, it's everything surrounding the event. But it wasn't until I was a little bit older where I actually was like started watching more and more and more and more horror films. And so yeah, I didn't see this one until I was a little bit older. Definitely scared the fuck out of me. Not as much as Signs, I'll tell you, but definitely scary. And that one, and like Texas Chainsaw, The Ring, were like some of my earliest like horror films, like directed towards adult horror films, not like Gremlins or some shit like that. That's obviously family level. No, but like genuine horror films. That was one of the first. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. Many people consider it to be his best film. Yeah, they're right. They're right. It's still his best film all these years later. And I also think it's a terrific ghost story. I think it does a lot of that stuff that, of course, I know both you and I love, is that it's a ghost story, but it's much more than that. And yeah, I'm a fan of the Shyamalan. I'm a fan of the everything going on in this film. We'll talk about it more. But yeah, that's why I obviously wanted you to see this film for our Ghostober. Okay, I'm gonna run down real quick the film and what it's about. Thanks to our sponsors at Letterboxd. I believe their tagline is, "If it's on our site, it's definitely a movie."
I believe
TM.
they'll be hearing from our communication staff about that tagline. We're challenging that to the very core of it. We're going to go to court over that. That is not right. But we're challenging our sponsor in court. How about that? Go ahead, Peter.
Okay. I was going to make a Supreme Court joke, but I'm not anymore.
Oh, God.
The Sixth Sense, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Not every gift is a blessing. A psychological thriller about an 8-year-old boy named Cole Sear. Sear?
Yes.
Is it Sear? Oh,
Yeah.
fuck. Get it? Like he's a seer? All right,
Yep.
never mind.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty on the nose. I just got that. Who believes he can see into the world of the dead. A child psychologist named Malcolm Crowe.
Malcolm Crowe.
Fuck. I never noticed how just on the nose these names are. Comes to Cole to help him deal with his problem, learning that he really can see the ghosts of dead people. So, Alexis M. Rodriguez, how did you feel about The Sixth Sense?
Well, let's see if my experience and recounting, watching this movie can give you a good indication. I was sucked in immediately. I was captivated. Every moment of the movie. It's one of those films that just cannot fail, at least. I mean, it doesn't fail at all to hold your attention the entire way through. At no point do you feel like it's dragging or that we're heading through a slow period where it's like it's okay to look away because nothing important is going on. I was riveted. Like I was just so invested in not just the story, but just kind of immersed with the feeling of this movie. And one of the things that I noticed first about it, and it actually starts off in the opening moments, is I believe it's Lynn, Malcolm's wife, right? That notices how cold it is. And obviously, we'll know what we find out why the house is cold for a number of reasons, but that seems to be a feeling that, and it was clearly, I think, by design, because that would be in a way to, alert the audience that there was a ghost nearby, relatively throughout the entire movie. But the cold is used, and the capturing, cold breath, when it's so cold and you can see your breath and it's Philadelphia, so I felt cold watching the entire film, especially those like night scenes. So I think that was a really effective tool to use to just get you so immersed in the feeling of this film. I have to say, look, it's just so surprising. And again, my previous experience with Shyamalan for a while had only been Last Airbender. But then you made me watch Unbreakable.
That's right.
And I was kind of blown away by how much I loved that film. And then Split 2 was really, really good. Glass, less so. Decidedly much more mixed. Even though I walked away genuinely, I'm not going to say satisfied because I really wasn't. I guess I was like okay with it. I was like, okay, this was nice or whatever. You, I think, were much more pissed at the final result of it.
Here's the thing. Split was a script that he dusted off from a long time ago when he kind of had his mojo. And then Glass was a script that he recently wrote. And then this is why I'm saying the man needs a co-writer desperately. And, you know, maybe working off a story that's already like set in stone will help him with his next movie. Because, yeah.
Which I feel, I mean, those words I think are a lot kinder when you compare to other people in the industry like J.J. Abrams, who has no business writing anything and just stays out of it. Please, God, don't write anymore. Please.
Yeah, which is crazy because people are so hard on Shyamalan. But with the JJ, it's just such kid gloves, I feel. JJ,
I don't think has ever, or maybe, I'm not going to say ever will, but to my knowledge, I don't think JJ has made a movie that I think compares to the best of Shyamalan.
Oh, hell no. That's why, too, like, sorry, this isn't the Hate JJ. There's plenty of other episodes for that. So you liked it?
No, I loved it. I actually would use the word sensational with this film. It was, I mean, I know I used this last week with like that Poltergeist was amazing. I think this was perfect. It's kind of like a perfect movie. I don't know where I would begin to criticize it, but I think I think it's outstanding as a horror film, and yet I feel it's even better as just a straight up film. Everything from the direction to the writing to the fucking performances that rock you, from Bruce Willis to Toni Collette to Haley Joel Osment, like, oh my goodness. And some of those moments, they hold your attention, they grip you, they break you in parts with the terror with Haley Joel Osment, but also in moments toward the end of the movie where there's just an explosion of emotion. It's just so brilliantly crafted and staged, and while understanding, because people, you know, in passing, I've heard about this movie, people, and Shyamalan's known for his twists, and I guess this is where it began. Knowing there would be one, but yet still that was in the back of my mind entirely. Like, I wasn't even like thinking about it.
Wait. You didn't know the twist?
I did. I knew there was going to be a twist.
But you didn't know what the twist was?
No.
Really?
No.
You're lying.
No, I didn't know what it was. I knew that there would be one, but I didn't think it was one. I didn't think so. Obviously the twist is that Malcolm was dead. Yeah. And I felt stupid for not, oh, well, no shit. Because I was wondering, like, he got shot in the opening scene of the movie. And then we just moved past it. And we had that red herring of next fall and we see him alive and everything. So we just assumed we immediately like, all right, nothing came of it. He's fine and everything. But no, of course he died because he got shot in the stomach. And I was like, how did I not see that? And then when you think back, oh wait, he never interacted with anyone besides Haley Joel Osment, besides Cole. And then when they show you the scenes and you're like, no, I was thrown for a whirl. Like, I did not know that
this
twist
is
whatsoever.
Breathtaking to me because it is, to me, not knowing that Bruce Willis is a ghost at the end of The Sixth Sense is like going your entire life without watching Empire and then watching Empire and then being genuinely surprised that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
I'm telling you, man, I was out of the loop. When it came to that.
You were really out of the loop because, like, I don't know, like, as a child, I remember the fucking twist of The Sixth Sense. You never saw 50 First Dates?
No.
Okay. Okay. That's crazy to me that you didn't know. Because the last episode we did with Poltergeist, I think I even made a joke about how, oh yeah, the twist at the end, and like basically how what the twist is. And I thought at the time you just didn't think it was funny, but now I realize you had no idea what the fuck I was talking about.
Oh, that was a joke? Okay. I don't remember that moment. If I don't laugh, it means just assume I don't get it. I don't know what you were talking about, because I didn't think that was a joke. So that very much tells you that I didn't understand at least the reference that you had there. Now I do.
Seen it or not seen it, I just assume everyone knows that Bruce Willis was the ghost, because it became such a huge thing. Like at the time, like my god, like again, it's like the Luke, I am your father. It was such like a cultural.
I didn't know it was that big of a deal until I looked into the history of this movie, and I'm like, whoa, where the fuck where was I at when when all this shit was happening? Because apparently it became like an overnight sensation. It was so immediately like big with pop culture. It was the rage that year. But I mean, I was like 5 years old. I think that must have been the year where I started learning English. So like my first language is Spanish, and I didn't watch horror movies. I certainly didn't seek them out by any means. So like I don't know, man. This movie was just completely flew under my radar.
We were very different 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
Well, I was probably 4. But no, that's funny. So yeah, you got the fresh 1999 experience then with this film.
No, yeah.
So yeah, it must have been quite a revelation at the end.
It was amazing. It was honestly like, wow. That, because I'm so used to in these days when films try and pull a massive twist like that off, I'm so used to them failing entirely and ruining the entire movie. A la J.J. Abrams.
And I think this is why people go like, this movie both made and broke M. Night's career, because he became known as the twist guy overnight. And I feel like he leaned into that too much. Obligated. Like, oh, that's my identity, the twist guy.
Well, I mean, there was a massive twist, right, in Unbreakable toward the end with Glass.
Yeah, but then that became the dominant conversation of every one of his films,
because that was the second film following Sixth Sense, correct, of Shyamalan, because it was 99 and then it was 2000 or 2001.
It was Unbreakable. Then Signs was like height of the M. Night, love fest. And then people were like, I remember with Signs, people were like, this is good, but it's not as good. It was that kind of thing. And then when you got to The Happening, people were like, I don't know about this. And then when you got to Lady in the Water, that's when people are like, this is shit, like genuine shit. But then also, again, you're gonna see a movie on M. Night's life. M. Night became very full of himself. Like,
I recall you hearing this. No, I recall you saying this in the past, and also over the years when M. Night would be brought up in discussion on media outlets, whether it had been, Collider, AMC, Fandom, those other outlets, you and I are so, I think, well familiar with at this point. I don't know if I think it was you that said that he was so far up his own ass that he was sniffing his own farts or something like that. Is how into himself he was. Like he bought into the hype.
No one bought into the hype more than him. It was bad. It was oh god. There was this book written about M. Night, and like they spent time following him around and all that. But the guy who wrote the book was high on Shyamalan as well. So the way it was written just came off so weird. Like I don't know. It's crazy. I remember reading some excerpts on like I don't know on online, and I was like, oh shit.
Well, there's actually a recent piece of literature that we can use. An article, not a novel, but an article by one of the UK press, I believe, from the Telegraph, where it was, I think, in the anticipation to Christopher Nolan's Tenet being released in theaters. I love how we worked that back into this because we haven't kicked that movie down enough. But when this critic suggested that we need to be prepared to sacrifice ourselves to make sure that movies succeed for Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which of course Nolan himself was being batshit crazy enough, but add that in with a writer who is as crazy as he is about this, it just makes for a bad mix. It comes off bad.
No, that was fuck everything to have to do with Tenet and all the movie theaters right now. But like Lady in the Water was originally supposed to be made with Disney. And...
You mean the Miramax subsidiary? The Miramax? Because I don't know what the situation is with Miramax. I think it was put on the shelf as a studio, but it is Disney owned. But
I know he was talking to Disney execs.
Okay. Like Eisner?
Specifically, I don't remember. But like I remember the excerpts talking specifically about Disney execs and him just being like, they don't understand my idea. Like, fuck Disney. And like the book was literally like meant to kind of be like everyone, this was his huge bet, like everyone didn't believe in this movie, but he was going to make it and prove them all wrong. And it was like all this shit with like Lady in the Water, and then it came out and like everyone fucking hated it. But in Lady in the Water, there's literally a character that plays a movie critic or a critic that is just an asshole, and then at the end the critic gets mauled to death. Like
it's always, and this happens a lot. I mean, This is the worst example. We like to compliment artists and directors and writers for inserting, write what you know is the saying as it goes, right? But and oftentimes that can be a great thing when it comes to the ultimate picture, and what it does thematically for your characters and for the film. But there are instances like what you just mentioned where it comes across like you just have an axe to grind and no one looks good of it. I recall Joker. Remember in the anticipation to it, what was the director's name? Todd Phillips was saying that, he can't make the comedy films he used to from 10 years ago because he can't use the F word to, make fun of gay people. I think you know which one I'm talking about. And in the movie where Joker kills Robert De Niro, he was saying, I thought comedy was supposed to be subjective. And it just came off so cringe.
Yeah. I was pretty like, what's the word? I kind of was neither here nor there when it came to Joker. But looking back, like that movie is just a big pile of nothing. But at the same time, I'm just so happy it exists because the memes are just so funny. They're so good. I'm glad it exists just for the fucking Joker memes. The society. Oh god, I love it. But yeah, he's definitely an example of someone way up his own end. But I think he's just an asshole. Like in general, that director.
Todd Phillips?
Yeah, Todd Phillips. Whereas M. Night was someone that, like, when you hear him speak, he doesn't come off as an asshole.
No.
Right? And even the people that interact with him, like, he doesn't come off. He just bought into the hype way too much. Like, way, way too much, where his word was golden. But what's crazy with him is he went from, like, beyond praise that any director had felt so quickly to just laughing stock in no time at all.
I can't think of an example of a better example of a rise and fall story because of just how quickly it happened, right? It was a quick rise, and then it was just the bottom fell out the next day.
Well,
not the next day. I mean, like, right.
Within a decade.
Right, within a decade.
Because his career was kicked off, right at the 2000s. And then, what year did The Last Airbender come out?
It was, I want to say it was 2009 or 2010. I think it might have been 2010.
Within a decade, he went from the hottest thing Hollywood's ever seen to just the bottom of the barrel biggest
a pariah.
Joke. Yeah, like it's crazy. And now he's just kind of doing this weird semi comeback where he's just trying to get back into it. And I mean, I feel for him. I really do. I really hope. Like I said, I'm always going to root for him to do well. Because I think he cares. He cares a lot about film and making it. And I don't think he's like a bad person. He just got caught up in who wouldn't really?
That's kind of the thing, right? It's like, I mean, when everyone is telling you you're great, at some point you're going to have to start to believe it. And that may be when I mentioned earlier that there was some carryover in the media angle. The media always plays this dirty game. They prop someone up only to tear them down when it's convenient for them.
It's like human sacrifice.
It really is.
It's really bad.
With the movie, with the release of The Sixth Sense, which is the film we're talking about, you had talked about, or you had mentioned it earlier in the episode about the next Spielberg. The media literally labeled him the next Spielberg. Over The Sixth Sense.
Newsweek. No, it was
Was it Variety, The Hollywood Reporter?
Was it Time? It was either Time or Newsweek, and it was during the release of Signs. Because it was him standing, like, arms folded in front of a cornfield. So then it's like, he was obviously has to do with Signs, because of all that shit. Speaking of Joker, Joaquin Phoenix is in Signs. Along with Kyle's third dad. What's his name? The one that hates the Jews.
Who are you talking about? Who's third dad?
He wrote Passion of the Christ. He directed The Passion of the Christ.
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. There we go. Sorry. Slipped my mind. I'm terrible at names. But we should talk about the movie we're supposed to be talking about.
Well, I said that, we left off with, I was blown away with the twist, and
then I was blown away.
How there could exist a person in 2020 not having heard that? Well, hey, we're real. We exist. I'm proof of that.
There are dozens of us. Dozens.
The point is, I think it says a lot about how great it was that over 20 years later, that still works. Like how it was supposed to and how big it was. So, hey, yeah. That's a win in my book, I feel.
Yeah, okay. So,
well, I mean, you talk about that. I mean, your first experience watching
it shocked
the movie,
you. You were blown away. You liked how big it was. I got it. My first time seeing the film, I knew the twist. I knew it long before I saw the film. But there was certain things that I found really interesting. So, for instance, when the boy gets home and, Toni Collette, the mom, is there, she's sitting on the couch, and across from her is Bruce Willis. And they're just sort of sitting there. And then she's, when he walks in, she gets up like, oh, hi, how you doing? And then she goes, and then he goes and sits down and talks to Bruce Willis. And there's this, just in my head, the way it's framed, as a viewer, I make so many assumptions. Like, I assumed, he went to go make a house visit they were just sitting there waiting for him to come home.
Yeah.
And then she went to say hi, went to go get food, and then, to leave room for him and Bruce Willis to talk. But then you think about it, and it's like, no, but they never directly interact even the slightest way. And there's so many little instances, like Bruce Willis, when he goes to his anniversary dinner, and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry I'm late. I had this going, I'm this, and the wife's there, and she's not talking to him. She's like, whatever. And then she finally just says, happy anniversary or whatever. And then just kind of, I can't remember, does she walk away? I think she just gets up and walks away. And you're like, fuck, their marriage is on the rocks. But then when you think about that scene, it's like, no, she went there because it's their anniversary and she's alone. And she's depressed. She's sad that her husband is dead. And her whole thing about happy anniversary is it's genuine, She's just sad about saying it. She's kind of saying it to herself. And there's so many moments like that. And it's really, to not really think of a better word, it's masterful.
It is. I mean, him coming home and watching, and they're randomly videos of their wedding on the television, and there's just seemingly no explanation. I mean, that also just defy the train of thought that we're supposed to buy. If we're to believe that they're so estranged, why would she be putting on random the same video of their wedding all the time?
Well, again, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, she's thinking to better, happier times, when their marriage wasn't falling apart, when it was
right. I was thinking that
beginning.
Too, but when you look back on that, you start to realize,
everything fits so well.
Right? Yeah,
it really is just perfectly like a glove. And it's one of those things, even on repeat, none of it is forced in the slightest. And usually with these twists, there's little things where it's like, okay, well, that's obviously what it's going to be, right? Not once. It's just so masterfully put together where even if you removed the twist, let's say you cut off the film right after he helps the kid, and then it's like, yeah, it ends there. You would never go like, well, there was weird stuff going on with him. That wasn't really explained. No, you'd be like, oh no, yeah, everything perfectly makes sense. I guess they didn't wrap out him and his wife's troubles, but, it all makes sense. It's so crazy good. It's crazy. And I understand it, it makes sense why a movie such as this would sort of loom over the rest of whoever made its career, so to speak.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, did you find the movie scary?
There were places where I think it was very effective. I think to me, when the revelation comes after the I see dead people, I guess, revelation, which, I don't want to go on a side tangent, but I guess we're going to, at the risk of doing it, here we go. I thought to myself, oh, that's where that's from. Okay. I didn't know that I see dead people, which of course I did encounter in other pieces of pop culture. I didn't know that it came from this film.
Mm-hmm.
I did know last week that They're Here, the TV people, was from Poltergeist, but I didn't know that I See Dead People came from this movie in particular, so.
I see now why you were so defensive in the beginning.
Well, I mean, let me be clear about this. I make no such apologies for not having experienced this sooner. I don't. And I mean, I will say this how I said, I think brilliantly, when we were discussing Hill House. I feel like I benefit the most from having seen it at the time that I did, because look at the year that we're living in. Look at 2020. Look at the conditions at which we have to suffer where everyone's in depression. So I feel like I benefit the most from having waited to have seen it in this year. So, I mean, it may sound as if I was defensive, and because I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't like to be criticized. I don't like to be made fun of, and I like to provide concrete solutions or reasons for why perhaps it was until this point that I would see it. But I think that also is the concept of the show, is it not? And you and Kyle, I think we're the ones that were the brain trust of this series, was to, it really was a way for you, let's be honest, to get us to watch more movies.
God.
But it's worked.
Yes, it has.
Hasn't it? It's worked. And I think, and I will fully admit, I think to the betterment of all of us. I have been so beyond pleased with the films that you've selected that I would never have gone out of my way to see and had not in the past. But, I mean, it's funny, though, how much I've missed in my life. I will say that.
Well, I will say, when I first pitched this show, you were not on board.
I was not, and I'll tell you
at all.
I was not on board because I was concerned with Kyle taking on too much. Remember when we were talking about this series, he said we're going to do it 2 times a week, every week.
Yes, that was quite a bit.
Every week, 2 times a week.
He gets
and remember,
overzealous.
And it was to include all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't how it is now, where it's like 2 people, but it was like
it was 2 people per episode.
Was it that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, one episode would be you and Kyle, then another one would be Kyle and me, and then the next one would be me and you, and then Kyle and you.
Okay. Oh, well.
But I also remember you saying you just didn't want people forcing you to see movies you didn't want to see.
I have no recollection.
That was a big one. I
have no recollection of that.
I remember.
No.
I have all the recollection. Don't you worry.
I have no recollection of saying that, but if I did say that, well, clearly I just admitted to me being wrong. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but I don't recall ever saying that. Although you do have questionable comments in the past that
just
don't.
Marking another one.
Oh, yeah, you can put that right next to Bernie losing and Trump winning. So I hope you feel happy about that, about how, true your predictions come. I hope they bring you years and years of warmth and joy, Peter. I really do. Because, 9 times out of 10, your predictions are cold and heartless and cruel and, bring nothing but destruction. So, if that makes you happy, if that brings you joy, I'm not going to judge you for it. But go ahead. By all means, do that.
Don't be mad when I can correctly interpret the world as it is, okay?
And I didn't say I was.
I didn't
say I was. I'm
the messenger.
But if that makes you happy, well, it is what it is.
Well, as you say, you gotta, with how the world is, you gotta find happiness where it's at.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. So, I knew this would create another tangent. What were we saying? I see dead people? Is that where it was?
Okay. Because at first I asked you about, was it scary? And then you were getting into the whole, I see dead people. And then I was like, wow, I can't believe, you did, that wasn't, because that's an even bigger cultural thing. I see dead people. In which case,
I did hear of it. I knew of it.
Yeah.
I just didn't know where it came from.
Oh, okay. Did you know the premise of The Sixth Sense before watching?
No.
Okay, so you knew nothing.
No, I went into this blind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because even other films that you haven't seen, you know of them, I feel. There's a lot of films I've given you where you've never seen.
I've heard of this movie. I knew that it featured Bruce Willis. I knew there was an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I know that it did relatively well when it was released. But chalked it up to trivia that I heard in passing. But I never, and maybe at one point I was made aware of the concept, but obviously I didn't follow through with it, so it just completely left my mind.
So scary. You thought him saying I see dead people was scary?
No. I said after. What I was going to say is after he says that, then we see what he sees. And, you see, it's so hard, I feel, to, say, oh, this was scary. Because, I mean, I guess it was haunting. I guess it was creepy. Was I like chilling? I mean, the only time where I was like, ugh, was that kid in his room that goes into his room, and then from behind, you see that his head has been cracked open. There's like a zoom into it.
Yeah.
That was like one of the ones where I was like, oh shit. That scared me. But I mean, that's about it, I feel. I mean, it's so hard, I think, to describe, I guess, in an articulate manner, like what I find particularly scary. These kind of stories I do. I mean, the other one where it was kind of like a little bit of a jump cut, was when Cole in the school sees 3 people hanging. That was that was creepy and scary. And I was scared for him. But like, was I like shivering? I wasn't. It's hard to describe this. Like, I mean, I think Hill House, there are scary moments throughout, and I'm creeped out the entire time. But overall, is it the scariest thing I've ever seen? No. But is that a bad thing to say? I think this goes back to your thing, right? You said last week about how certain people judge horror films. I mean, it wasn't all that terrifying. It wasn't all that scary, but it is horror. So,
I mean, I don't find most films scary.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, that's why, to me, like, the threshold for a scary movie being good is it has to scare me. Like, I don't know. I like, off the top of my head, a film where it's just like, I'm like, oh my god, I can't watch it. Like, I don't think a film like that exists. Yeah, so it's weird. But to me, there are scary moments that I genuinely like within the film. Like, everything having to do with in his room. Like, oh fuck that. I didn't like that. The throw up girl.
Oh my god! Oh my god! That wasn't scary, but it was her when she was revealed. That was like a quick kind of moment. But I think the true horror with her came later on, and it was real, and wasn't really a ghost with what happened to her. And that we'll get into that point. But that was, I think, as you say, real life is a real horror movie.
Yeah. And this film very much follows in that angle, that pursuit, because it is very classic horror, where it's like he's in the tent, it's cold, the music, it's scary, and then the camera moves and she's there and she has like vomit, she's like crying, and it's just scary. Like, I don't like it. And then he like runs out of the tent, but then he turns around, right? And then he pulls off the tent, and what's revealed is a sad, scared girl. And it kind of flips it on its head, so to speak. And it goes along with or at least what Bruce Willis told him, which is these souls, they're terrifying, but they're not there to hurt you. They just need help. So why?
Maybe imply that they're kind of right. A little bit of an implication that perhaps they're stuck in some kind of a purgatory. That there's like some unfinished business left to do of some sort with the ghosts that are around.
Yeah. So then it becomes about, why don't you try to help them? And then, of course, that's where that takes off. Toni Collette, wonderful as always.
I didn't recognize her until like the very end of the movie. Like, I knew
really
it said Toni Collette, so I assumed it was her for most of the film, but she almost looked unrecognizable to me until the end of the movie.
Okay, I thought it did look like her. I was like, yeah, that's
I
Tony.
will credit that into her disappearing into character. How about that? Because I think as far as the performance, man, if she was that great in 1999 as she, man, like it's so, what an underrated actor, what an underrated career, because like what she did, like in these movies, I'm not sure if the overall quality of the film necessarily fell on the shoulders of her performance. And there may be entirely, I mean, to some extent, yes, because it is the mom. But it's not the main part, but it is a significant part. And to me, what I think was the most successful about her performance was how real it felt. She didn't come off like the great Toni Collette giving a performance. She felt like a real person. She felt and looked like a real mom from that time. Honestly. And I think that's what acting is, right? Because you fooled me. It felt like an actual mom. And I think her performance was nothing less than phenomenal. And I mean, I can't say the same. I mean, I think to me, it was better, I think, than Willis. I think Willis was amazing in this, if I'm being honest with you. Like,
remember when Willis gave a shit? Oh my God.
I mean, when you look at the performance he gave in Glass to this, it's like you forget, man, he can be charming when he wants to actually act.
He hasn't wanted to in a decade, but no, the way the Academy just obsesses over Meryl Streep, I feel is the way they should obsess over Toni Collette. Because
But she does horror movies. Remember that they're not real movies.
She does a wide range of film. And she's versatile. Toni Collette.
She did get nominated for this movie, right?
Probably.
She was given
there was a lot of love over this film.
No, there were several Academy Award nominations, and I do believe, I mean, obviously Haley Joel Osment, which we'll get to, was one of them. But I do recall reading that Best Supporting Actress was one of those, and I don't know how it could not be Toni Collette. Who else would be nominated for Best Supporting Actress in this movie besides Toni Collette? I'll look it up to make sure right now, but I'm pretty sure she was nominated for that.
Bruce Willis' wife? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think,
No.
But you were saying about Toni Collette?
She's incredible because she can do comedy, she can do drama, horror, where she's just terrifying and being terrified. She can literally do everything. Someone on Letterboxd made a list called awkward Toni Collette dinner scenes, and it's like, I was like, oh, that's right. She does have a lot of films in which some dramatic shit goes down around the dinner table. That was another.
That's true. Yeah, just to clarify, the film is nominated for Best Director, Best Editing, Best Original Screenplay, Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Haley Joel Osment, and Best Supporting Actress.
For Toni Collette?
It doesn't say. I don't know why, but obviously it has to be Toni Collette. I'll go even further.
Who is this mystery woman?
Yeah, right here it says. In 1999, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress by the Academy Awards for her role performance in The Sixth Sense.
Haley Joel Osment, one of the most famous child actors, and he was great, fantastic. You believe that this kid is traumatized, like you said, when he's breaking down. Like, I see dead people. You're like, fuck.
Did he do this immediately before AI?
It had to have been, right?
Because AI was 2001?
Yeah, this was definitely before. Hell,
was it
maybe
immediately before, I feel?
Maybe it got him the job. I don't know. You never know. It's weird how sometimes when actors blow up, they blow up, Like, they just have like a couple movies that they filmed when they weren't that big. They just come out and hit at around the same time, and then boom, you're just overnight. Your career.
His first film was playing Forrest Gump Jr. I don't. Wow. So it was The Sixth Sense in '99, and then there was I'll Remember April, Pay It Forward in 2000, and then 2001 AI Artificial Intelligence, which was amazing in that movie as well.
I remember Pay It Forward. Have you seen that one?
No.
He dies.
Oh.
He's
very
great. 90s movie.
He's honestly, I think one of his performances in both AI and in this movie are just like, is there a proper they're out of this world good for his age.
What's funny about him is he's one of those child actors who just kind of grew up, and because of his work as a child actor, he really doesn't have to work. So he just kind of does whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll work here and there when he wants to, and on projects he wants to work on. Like he had I don't know if you saw the new season of What We Do in the Shadows. He had a guest
I see
role.
it right here. I'm looking at his filmography. Yeah, I mean, look at his guest. He was a Robot Chicken, What We Do in the Shadows, The Kaminsky Method, The Boys. He was on 2 episodes of The Boys, the Amazon show.
He does what he wants.
Right, yeah.
You could tell everything he does now, it's because he's a fan. He's like, oh, fuck, I like this. Just make a call. Can I come in and do something? They're like, fuck yeah, you're Haley Joel Osment. I remember he wasn't officially on the show, but he did promos for It's Always Sunny on Philadelphia.
Did he?
Yeah.
A show that's been running like forever now, right? Like,
yeah.
What season is it on?
The joke was that they recast the actors for more A-listers, and he was.
Oh my god!
He was one of them. No, he's great. He was fantastic in this film. I believed that he saw dead people.
I did too, and then we saw them in real life.
Oh, and speaking of the horror scenes, I know this is like incredibly cliche horror shit, but it's cliche horror shit I love, and it's, for me, it's always effective. I don't know why, but it hits that scary bone of mine, is when he is listening to the recording of his old patient.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing in the beginning, is that he had a patient who, when he was young, claimed similar things, that he could speak to dead people or just had similar issues. There was people there talking to him, whatever. And he couldn't help him. And then that's why he showed up in his house, shot him, and then shot himself. And throughout the film, that's why you're kind of assume why he's taking this case, Haley Joel Osment. We find out later it's more of a has to help him before he can move on kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he notices the similarities between him and his former patient, so he's going back and listening to recordings of him, and it's so good, because you hear them talking and they're like, oh yeah, like, is everything good? Yeah, everything's okay. And then you even hear Bruce Willis go like, oof, it's cold in here, like, oh yeah. Da 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 da. And then he's like, oh, I gotta go take care of this, I'll be right back. And then the kids, it's basically quiet, but the kids kind of like, you kind of hear him like breathing a little heavy, like kind of scared. And then Bruce Willis comes back. He's like, oh, okay. How's it going? He's like, are you okay? You look a little different. What's going on? And then, of course, the classic horror, like, oh, rewind the tape, enhance audio background. Fucking Ghost Hunter shit. and then you could hear someone else in the room. I think it was like a Spanish voice, like,
Yeah.
"Ayúdame." And it's just like, oh fuck, I don't know, like those kind of things always.
I think it was saying something
affecting
like "No me quiero morir" or algo así.
Yeah, which I don't know.
mean, there's a lot of creepy stuff, like when he is answering a question in class about how they used to hang people in the very classroom that he sits in the building that he's in, which, I mean, Philadelphia. And then, of course, when he basically breaks his teacher and bringing out the whole Stutter Stanley card, I was like, that's traumatizing. As somebody who was instructed a classroom, that kind of is a little traumatizing. I don't want
the idea of a kid just being able to break.
Yeah, that would be. But I mean, like, how would he know that? And how it, like, he brought that back. Like, how it just gets you thinking, like, how internally and deep down we bury some things from our past, but how quickly they can be brought back to the surface like that.
Oh yeah,
that was effective. Thought it was a really good scene.
To me, one of the scariest parts, if we can get to this, was when he goes to the vomiting girl's funeral, and he is up in her room. There's a lot of tension, and she just, grabs his leg, and I was like, no.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit,
don't. And then just sort of slowly slides the box to him. I mean, that's kind of on these ghosts too. They do their hardest to just not be approachable. Like, holy shit! Like Bruce Willis, he was an approachable ghost.
Right?
He's just like, hey, like I'm here to help. What's going on? With these other ghosts with like their eyes all sunken and blood everywhere, like like I don't know. They should have had the Bruce Willis approach. It worked for him real easy. But then obviously what that reveals too. And oh god, the way it's shot is so good. I love the Shyamalan. Again, I really like him as a director.
Mm-hmm.
And the way just everyone in the funeral is there, he goes and hands it to him, the box, and then just kind of leaves, opens it. It's a VHS tape. Yes, that's how old this movie is. And at first it's like a cute video, maybe it's like something heartfelt to remember his daughter by. That's the way it started, like, oh, cute, puppets, and he's watching in the chair and everyone's watching. And then no. It takes a very devastating turn when the tape basically reveals the wife was poisoning the daughter and it was killing her. She killed her. That's why she's like vomiting the whole time. She poisoned her until she was dead. And just the way the acting on the husband's face, it's so good. So good. Just the realization of everything that's going on, from just sad to sort of moments of not joy, but just like love, where he almost cracks a smile with her puppets, to like, wait, what the fuck is this? With her preparing the meal, and then when he confronts her about killing her, that whole scene I thought was just so amazingly well done. And was that
go ahead.
Was that the step wife? Like, or was that her mother? Because if that was her mother, damn.
That's a good question, right? Because that's not necessarily answered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to come off as if we're anti-stepmoms. But I mean, it is, I think, a common thing to see in movies where, that's a classic Disney villain almost, is the stepmom, in Cinderella's case. And
no love for mothers.
No. I mean, I guess your natural instinct would be to assume so, because what parent would kill their own child?
Yeah. Like, that's
Unless they weren't
crazy.
hers. But even, I mean, of course, we're talking about like separation of degrees of like that are all monstrous. But in terms of how that scene was executed, I was horrified because at first you think it's like what you say, oh, this cute little thing, and then the camera lingers, and I get this horrible feeling in the bottom of my stomach, and we're still on that frame, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, 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 and oh my god, like what it. My jaw was literally on the floor. It's like, what? Holy fucking shit. And I mean, talk about awkward. Everyone's there, like, watching it together. In the funeral. And of
Yeah,
course, like,
that's what's crazy too, because then when he goes to confront her, like, the crowd has followed him, so he's got like a posse behind him, you know? Because it's like this very, god, like, fuck, dude. Like, imagine, like, you're not even, I don't know, like, you barely know the family. You're
yeah.
like, you go with a friend, and you're just like, fuck, dude. I don't know. That's crazy.
I've, I feel like I would want to walk out immediately. Would you, or would you
Oh,
stick
hell
around?
no. I'm the dude's backup. Let's go confront this bitch. She ain't leaving here alive, I'll tell you that.
I don't know. I would want to leave because it's just so uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, that's so uncomfortable. Ugh. But it's so good. It's so good. It's so well done.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, I love how it highlights this connection between this terrifying otherworldly thing like a ghost. But a ghost is a human, and the way it finds that human connection at the end. And you would think making the ghost more human would make it less scary, but it's actually the opposite. You know, it's that human connection that makes it more terrifying. We haven't talked about it yet, but this is something. Well, we haven't talked about Blind Manor yet, but this is something Flanagan does in all his work, really. Specifically, like at Hill House, where you're shown a very scary ghost type figure,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, fuck, that's scary. And then you sort of discover the more human connections behind that ghost. And you're like, fuck, that's terrifying, but in a very different way. He's I think he's really good at that. And that's something you see played off really well here. Where at first you're like, because I'm putting myself in that kid's shoes, right? And as a kid, I'm very scared, very skittish, you know. I don't know, I would have had a heart attack if I saw half the shit he saw as a kid. Those ghosts. I don't know. Oof. But then you pull back the layer and you realize these are just broken souls and sort of the sad state of affairs that led them there. It's more terrifying in another way. Right?
Yeah.
Like, the whole idea of ghosts to me is just terrifying.
No, it is. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are obviously beneath the surface. Like, I keep thinking back to the particular ghosts that he would see hanged at the school.
Yeah.
And I think the implication is that that building has been around in Philadelphia for a very long time. They do mention in the movie that Philadelphia was, for a time, the capital of the United States. And hangings were a thing. To when it stopped, I'm not so sure. Probably until the very, I want to say, late 19th century or early 20th century, maybe. I guess my best guess. If we exclude lynchings, which we probably shouldn't, but I mean, that continued well into the 1900s. But for like official executions, in terms of like, they very clearly were like a lot of them, at least the ghosts that he would see in that particular place, the ones that were hanged, I didn't think that I saw a single white person. They were all people of color or immigrants or some shit like that.
Yeah.
If you noticed, it was weird. I was trying to figure out what was trying to be said there. By the way, we're recording this on Columbus Day, and that's a little extra weird because he's the one who's responsible for all this, which fuck Christopher Columbus, I think we should say.
I think everyone should personally just, to yourself, think it, say it under your breath. Fuck Christopher Columbus. I think it's important. I think it's important that we collectively acknowledge
on the fact that he has a national holiday.
on the day that he has a national holiday. Fuck Christopher Columbus. I think that's very important.
Yeah. That's very true what you said.
Yeah.
And you also go back to the mom and the stepmom that killed the girl. When they pan to her, what's interesting is that she's wearing red. It's not typical for a funeral, and she's not grieving either. She's not crying. She has this oh my god. She has this look on her face that she doesn't give a shit what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So like automatically when we pan to her and you see her, it's like you knew it, but you believe it now.
Yeah, because what's so sad is the dad just looks devastated. Like you killed her. And her look is like, oh fuck, I'm caught. No, it's not sadness.
Can I be honest with you? I skipped that part.
Oh, really?
No, you and I have this in common where I cannot stand those kind of like social anxiety situations that make you want, like public gatherings that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So after we finished watching the tape and we pan to her, I fast forward to when they're outside talking to the sister because I could not handle that shit. That was just too awkward and uncomfortable.
I don't even think she says anything. It's more of just like an expression than it cuts anyway.
Oh.
But no, oh god, like if you know what's funny? It's easier for me to take like horror scenes than for me to take cringe scenes in film. Yeah. Like if there's a cringy something that's like very cringy going on in a film, like I might have to walk out of the room.
No,
like it's too much for me to.
David Francisco, we've had this discussion. We feel the same way. I think also Kyle to an extent. One of the ones that we brought up as an example of this is that scene in the movie Love, Simon, where one of the friends is using, I think, a pretty well-attended high school football game to ask out this ridiculously hot girl to prom or something like that, and he gets like turned down in the most humiliating way. Ooh. I skipped that scene, and Kyle was like, lucky you, because I watched it in a theater and I could not escape.
No, I can't. That's so funny though, that emotion is just so much more unbearable than like I will watch, I don't know, throw any horror movie, fucking Saw, super unrated, people getting skinned alive, you scary as shit. Like I'll watch, maybe I'll like lift the covers a little, be obviously a little scared, but like I can watch it. But a scene in a movie that's like very cringe, I can't take it.
Well, one movie that's not, it's not at all a horror movie by any means, but because the whole movie is what we just described, 8th Grade.
Oh no. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I couldn't take it. Oh no. Yeah.
By Bo Burnham. Wonderful movie. Really, really great film. I think a great commentary. But it also, I think, there's something in that movie that, at least for me, and I think also you, took us back to a point in time where everything was awkward, and that is awkwardness just encapsulated in a film.
Oh god, I couldn't take it. I think I even said during that discussion, like, this is the worst horror or like this is the like scariest film of the year. Like I can't. It's obviously not scary, but as far as like tolerance,
I had to pause the movie so many times when I was watching it. 8th Grade.
No,
great film.
Very good. But on the cringe versus horror scare, horror is definitely lower.
Yeah.
But Bruce Willis, obviously fantastic. he again. This is also at the height of Bruce Willis. This is Bruce Willis giving a shit. The last time Bruce Willis gave a shit was probably Looper.
Which is pretty recent, I want to say.
2013?
8 years.
I told you, like a decade.
2012.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened there. Was it the Ryan Johnson charm that got him to give a shit?
I don't know. Because, like, Kevin Smith has notoriously talked so much shit about Bruce Willis. And, like, just how bad it was to work with him on set. But he also said that, and this was a long time ago, this was long before Star Wars, that they were somewhere, I don't know, con or whatever, they were on stage, and then backstage, Ryan Johnson, like, took Kevin Smith to the side, and he's like, hey, like, I heard you had a bad experience with Bruce, like, I'm sorry, like, that wasn't my experience at all, like, I don't know what happened there. Like, that's, like, yeah, he was telling, like, wow, that's crazy, like, that wasn't what I had experienced at all, like, Kevin Smith had said that before. So, yeah, it seems like, that was one of the last things. Have you heard any of Kevin Smith, what he said?
No, I don't think I have. But, I mean, I have heard very little of Willis in general this last decade. I mean, he's hardly been around.
He's doing nothing but direct to video shit. It's all a paycheck for him now. Like, you can really tell.
Like Nicolas Cage?
No. Well,
Nicolas Cage doesn't do anything besides those. I mean, he did 1 or 2 movies in the last few years that received some notoriety, but
he's still up for that crazy shit, and he tries. He's still an actor that definitely tries. Now, he's definitely doing more.
Well, I didn't say.
direct...
excuse me. I didn't imply that he had given up. But I do believe that he's been more known this last decade for doing directed video stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's because he was just god awful handling his money, and just went into massive amounts of debt. So he had to do it. Whereas Bruce, I think, is just like, I don't think he has to do it. It's just like, hey, money. You know what I mean? Like, I think one of the things he had like 5 homes, like massive mansions.
Nicolas Cage, you mean?
Yeah, Nicolas Cage. And he had to sell all of them. He had a dinosaur bone. Like, they were auctioning off some of his shit, and it's like these, like, you could tell he just bought anything and everything.
Did this happen post National Treasure?
Oh yeah.
I wonder if they ever made a third movie that would have helped him just a tiny bit.
They still should.
Paycheck. I know, right?
I'm on the National Treasure 3 train.
Disney Plus,
although,
hey.
Now, oof. How do you do it?
Because of the monuments, you mean political correctness and that kind of stuff? Or because of just like neoliberals?
Because I love the National Treasure movies, but it is all about, like, this, like, oh man, you know, America. It's all about the bright side of that shit. Well, remember I brought it up when we were talking about Hamilton? Did I? Or maybe did I just think that?
You mentioned it, I think. Mm-hmm. I want to say you did mention about National Treasure, and because you had a problem with how Hamilton portrayed it, which, I mean, that was only in 2015, 2016, and I agree with you to a certain extent. In 2020, it rings differently.
Well, I guess with National Treasure, at least they never lied to me, right? Like, they never tried to say that George Washington, oh man, he hated slavery. He could have ended slavery if he could. Like, they handled the more dicey subjects of the time by just not addressing it, which I think isn't great, but it's a lot better than just pretending they were these heroes that they weren't.
So, do you feel perhaps that the National Treasure films, and I think this is what you're implying, the original 2 films were somewhat tone deaf?
No.
Would they be tone deaf
maybe,
if they came out today?
You couldn't get away with it today. I'll put it that way.
You see, that sucks because I think I would much prefer that than anything else Disney live action would crank out because it'll be shit.
I mean, you could incorporate that into it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bruce Willis. Height of his career. He did great. I actually think he was better in Unbreakable. But I liked him a lot here as well.
He's great in both.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other thoughts on the film?
I actually don't. I don't, but I have to say, I love the film. I mean, I think it was kind of perfect. I honestly do. I get the hype. I definitely won't forget this one.
I forgot to mention the Toni Collette Oscar moment when they're in the car and he's confessing.
I forgot that scene. Oh my god, yes.
Yeah. That's the scene of the movie to me.
Yes.
Where he's finally coming clean to her, like, I do speak to dead people.
Mm-hmm.
And then he starts to talk about how he, speaks to her mom. He says, I talk to grandma. And mentions how when she was young and she danced, maybe they had fought, but she thought that the mom didn't go in to see her, but she actually did. And it's both of them are acting just so good. He has Watering Up telling her this story about the grandma that he can only know. He has literally no way of knowing any of this unless the grandma came to him one night and told him. And Toni Collette just like falling apart emotionally. Like, oh my god, that scene is so good.
It's a lot to take in because I think her initial instinct is like, wait, what? My kid can do what now? But then when you believe it, because he's telling you things that only he would know by saying, by him being able to do this, and then she's breaking down because of all the. Well, what was the last thing about, did I make you proud? Is that what she asked at her grave? And then her kid, Cole, said, he basically is a messenger, and he said every day.
Oh, no. I think it was the other way around. He was like, you go to her grave and you ask her a question, and her answer is every day.
Yeah.
And then like she breaks down, and then he's like, well, what was the question? And then she's like, do I make you proud? No, that shit's so good. So good. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention that scene because it's maybe my favorite of the whole film.
No, I can't believe we almost wrapped up and not talked about that. I agree with you. That also just like, it's a horror movie, but there's like different flavors in this movie I think that can appeal to, which is why I feel it was so successful to a broad audience.
Thriller. A horror movie can only succeed in the eyes of the Academy if it can also be labeled a thriller.
Or a drama.
It's kind of like mixing the colors.
Mm-hmm.
If you mix a horror and a drama together, you get a thriller. Yeah.
Well, it's like when you say thriller, like people think like a action thriller, but you mean psychological thriller.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's also different categories to thriller as well.
Mm-hmm.
These are all made up categories. People just enjoy films.
Well, don't tell that to the Academy.
Don't let the Academy brainwash you with their propaganda. They're going to give Sonic Best Picture of the Year this year, so they have no choice.
They would rather cancel the ceremony than to ever award Sonic anything.
So, what you're saying is Sonic the movie is like the Bernie Sanders of films, and the Academy is the DNC? He said yes, people. Yeah, I think that was a good discussion.
Can you tease what movie we're doing next?
Yes, the next and final film for Ghostober 2020 Bootacular is...
Did you just say bootacular?
I am trying to stay in theme, okay?
Oh my god.
Excuse me for giving a shit.
Are you sure you're not on the Regeneron stuff too?
God, I wish.
God.
From what I've seen, it works wonders. Holy shit. Or at least it's a hell of a high.
And we don't even have COVID.
Yeah. For the final to the table this October. Each film that we've covered so far, which of course is Poltergeist and The Sixth Sense, some of the biggest, not only horror films, not only ghost films, but films in general, some of the biggest films in American cinema, throughout the history of cinema. This next film is different. It is a Spanish language film. It's not necessarily widely known. It's slightly lesser known, maybe even a little cult following, if you will. It is produced by Guillermo del Toro. Again, another film where his name's all over it, but he's just the producer. The Orphanage. This is also a film I saw quite a whiles back, and then I rewatched it recently, and I'm like, yeah, I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, this is really good, and then I rewatched it, I'm like, yeah, this is really good, and I wanted to get you to see it, and of course, because we will be eventually be going into the works of Mr. Del Toro.
Well, not eventually, immediately thereafter.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
So,
well, there you go.
Because this will end the bootacular, as you say, to the table, but it will also transition us to the main Red Spotlight podcast with a month-long theme of talking about the works of Guillermo del Toro. Mm-hmm. I hope you are working, though, on which films of his we're going to be going over.
Oh, yeah. I've already... Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you can catch that on Red Spotlight. And then also, speaking of, we still have more horror-related content coming up for the month. So we just did a review of The Haunting of Hill House, as well as an audio commentary for The Shining. And then what's next, Peter, for the month?
Next up, we will be doing our review for the newly released The Haunting of Bly Manor. A fantastic film over at Netflix.
Fantastic television series, I believe you want to say.
Potato. And then after that, we will also be doing another commentary on, yes, the Mike Flanagan film or miniseries, Dr. Sleep. A lot of Mike Flanagan love going around this.
It's pretty much Mike Flanagan month, if we're being honest. Give or take The Shining, which was Kubrick and Stephen King. And then, of course, you have the stuff that we have here to the table. And Fantasy Fair also is not, I don't think horror related, but Halloween related. They just did, Moreno and Kyle just did a Once Upon a Retrospect, that's their version of recapping old films of the 2003 Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy.
Honestly, that's the one Disney anything with that fucking podcast that I would have liked to be on. Because I
had a feeling too.
Yeah.
I had a feeling. I don't know why they didn't ask you.
Because I have interesting feelings on that film.
Contrary to popular belief. And, I mean, but it also wouldn't be, I think, unoriginal, because I want to say that we, as a group of people on this podcast, happen to view that movie much more favorably than what people would have you believe.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. it's not that I don't, and that's the thing, right? Like I have, it's not super positive or even super negative. It's interesting feelings that I think could have raised a good discussion. But of course, I am rebanned on that podcast. I slighted the mouse. I was excommunicated. And until I do...
doesn't seem entirely fair, because I was recently on that podcast and I chastised Disney for, the concentration camp filming thing and the 28,000 jobs that they, they destroyed. And vice versa. Kyle was on Red Spotlight recently. It was a podcast. You weren't there because, I don't know, I think you were not available at that time. It was like 5:00 on a Monday afternoon. And he was on the show with me on Red Spotlight, and we were criticizing Disney for, the layoffs and everything. So I wonder if there's a double standard that applies only to you.
I think there's a massive double standard, because the High Disney Priestess said I must lash myself as repentance, one lash for each Disney park. So, in order to regain entry into the Fantasy Fair, I refuse to do so, so I remain uninvited.
And as a reminder, you can catch To the Table podcasts every Wednesday, Red Spotlight every Sunday and sometimes on Thursdays, and the Fantasy Fair on Fridays going forward. So, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week. Have a nice October. Hope you survive. Hope we survive as well. And until next time, bye-bye.
Boo.